Seven Blue Skies channel presents Paranormal, Book 31, Part 2, Her Legend, by Dr. Ahmed Khaled Tawfiq. And if you're enjoying these books, kindly like, subscribe, and comment to support this translation project and get notified about more content coming very soon. 3. A bit of a strange story. Her legend is that she is as mysterious as the night. This time we sat in one of the touristic cafes in El Hossein neighborhood, in the warm cafe full of scented shisha tobacco. And there was something sleepy in the atmosphere, tempting you to close your eyes and sleep. Putting one leg on top of the other, a local singer rested his Arabic guitar on his thigh and, with a thin, scratchy voice, began singing one of Kulthum's songs, The Night and Its Sky, and Its Stars and the Moon. Maggie looked at me, took a sip from her hot cocoa, and then licked her upper lip and asked me, "What is he saying?" "He's speaking about the night and the moon, and that sort of thing. Translation ruins the whole thing, for Kulthum is a special mix only an Arabian can get, like Sheikh Rifat's voice before the breaking of the fast in Ramadan, and the sound of the speaker on the morning of the Eid celebration, and the taste of mint tea in the fields at sunset." She looked at me, not understanding, but making a decent effort to get it. While sipping my coffee, I asked her, "Now, what's this danger you speak of?" Burying her face in her cup, she said, "Tabitha wasn't the first one to die, and she won't be the last." "What makes you think that?" "It's those phone calls. It started after my dad's death. I was living alone in our family's manor in Invernessshire, the sole heir and the last of the MacKillop breed. It's bad luck that this noble family, dating back to the era of Macbeth, ends with me, and no one on earth will carry the name MacKillop after me. You know that the manor is huge and scary, and the loneliness played its game on my psychological state. So I started staying away from the manor most of the time, or staying in my room, never leaving it. Graham, the head servant, knows how to handle things professionally, and with him Mrs. Olcott, the housekeeper, who is generally an active woman, but I never could feel comfortable around them. There was only one solution, which was to get married, but it doesn't happen with the click of a button. Also, if I wanted 100 husbands like that Fraser, I would have found them. Everyone dreams of the MacKillop family's legendary inheritance, which landed on the idiot sole heir. Finding a husband who is not a thief, not a liar, not a jerk, not vain, not trivial, is a very hard thing in this world." "I know one," I said happily, my heart pounding, but she did not pay attention to my words and continued. "That's how my life went," she said. "I exchanged letters back and forth with my old friends, and made some new friends, maybe most importantly with an engineer called Andrew Macpherson." "All the Scots are named Andrew," I replied. "I don't know how you can differentiate them." "Just like we think all Arabs are named Muhammad. It's definitely a pretty common name. Andrew is a polite, kind man, but he doesn't want to get married, at least to me. And there is a doctor named William and a model called Alestra, and it's an okay bunch. But at the end of the day you must return to your empty manor full of ghosts, to lie in your cold bed and read a story by Dickens until you get sleepy and the book falls from your hand." The singer's voice still wavered within the cafe. "And the air. Oh, what do I do with the air? All of this is like a dream. Is she really here with me in my own world? So much I want to say, but it evaporates. Emotions like eggs in a paper bag, destroying one another. So the only thing left of my emotions is a mix I don't understand at all. And Maggie is so practical. She keeps talking in the same reporting tone. It was a calm life anyway, but..." "She is the sun. Her place is in the sky. So eulogize the heart with a beautiful eulogy, for you won't be able to." "Rifat, you're not listening to me." Her voice returned me to this world of ours. I lifted up my eyes in embarrassment. She didn't know that the problem was that I was listening to her more than I should, to the extent that I couldn't understand a word she was saying. No, I'm listening to you. Sometimes people think I'm absent-minded." "And they would be right," Maggie said. I was telling you that I received a phone call at 11 p.m. one day back in May. I don't remember literally the exact words of the phone call, but it was a man's voice, a man speaking in a normal, polite tone, not in that rough, throaty voice pranksters often use on the phone, trying to act scary. Anyway, he was saying, "There are 7, and there's no 8th to them. You'll know about the first of them 7 days from now." She took a sip from her cup, and I asked her, wondering, "Strange words. Did you understand anything from this?" She dabbed the leftover cocoa and said, "At the time, I didn't get it. It kind of rhymed, like poetry, and I thought it was just a joke. The world is full of jerks, as you know." And a week later they found the body of John MacArthur behind the steering wheel of his car. And there was a hose bringing the exhaust into the window of the locked car, the small entry point stuffed with a piece of cloth. It's that age-old method of execution by carbon monoxide poisoning. A lot of people commit suicide that way, but the position of the body and the fact that the car was locked proved that the accident was a murder. A crime which took place after drugging him, of course. In a raspy voice, I said, "Are you talking about MacArthur, our friend from college?" "Who else?" she said, and smiled bitterly. "This handsome young man who was filling the world with joy and happiness had simply died and doesn't exist anymore." "Any suspects?" I asked. "Nobody. No fingerprints, no trace of a single damn thing." She then sat silently, looking around her, and pointed like an amazed child at a lavish-looking Turkish shisha and asked me, "Why don't you smoke that?" I almost clapped my hands together in surprise. That's Maggie, the one with 1,000 interests, speaking about death and then about shisha with the same enthusiasm. I said, "It's a very complicated way of committing suicide by smoke. Cigarettes do the same job much more simply." "Please," she suggested, "order one." "Fine, Lady Maggie. After all, it won't be the weirdest request I ever do for you." And the shisha came. I started taking continuous drags from it, in front of her amazed eyes, and then blew out a cloud of smoke. I then put the mouthpiece aside as if to ask her, "Are you satisfied now?" "Please," I prompted, "finish your story." "A period of grief had passed," she continued, "and life went back to usual. And I really didn't find anything suspicious connecting what happened with the phone call. But after that I received a similar phone call. In a calm voice the speaker told me, 'There are 6, and there are no 7th to them. You'll know the second in 6 days.' And, of course, I went mad, screaming and pleading multiple times, asking who was talking, and to stop this silly prank. But the phone call ended, and 6 days later they found the body of Helen Blakely. It was—" "Oh, my God," I broke in. "You mean Helen Blakely who—" "Yes," she continued, "our old law student friend, Helen Blakely." "But this is—" "Yes," she went on, "she was a bad person, but if I wished for all the bad people I've met in my life to burn, this world would have turned into a big furnace. I didn't want her to end up a burnt corpse like they found her. Also, the ropes binding her proved that she was alive when—" I felt like vomiting, so I lifted my hand for her to stop. After a while I steadied my breathing and asked her, "Where did they find her?" "In a salvage yard near Grampian. I recognized her by her ring." Picking up the shisha mouthpiece again, I asked her, "You mean all the victims are from the college gang? Our gang?" "That's all I could speculate up to that point," she said. "But I was dumber than I thought. I didn't connect this accident with the 2 previous phone calls. Then the 3rd phone call came a month later. 5 with no 6th to them, I guessed. And you'll know the 3rd in 5 days. "Exactly. And at that point I had to move. I called Scotland Yard and told them about my suspicions. They didn't have anything better to do than monitoring my phone. I asked them to place surveillance on the members of our gang, though it seemed silly to me. Our gang had separated. What's the convincing proof which justifies wasting taxpayers' money for a delusion like that?" Without saying "Psst, psst," I called the waiter over to bring Maggie a cup of juice and then asked her, putting the shisha mouthpiece aside, "And surely it wasn't a delusion. Who died next?" "No one," she replied. "But I then read in the Times a short bit of news about the death of Tabitha in the Greek prison. It almost caused a diplomatic crisis. Given that those Greeks don't know how to protect the Brits in their prisons, it was better for them to return them to the UK. It's this conceited attitude of the builders of that empire. If I'm going to be killed, let it be with an English knife, not by a knife from the continent. Her bottom lip shook and her breathing quickened, and I realized then that she was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. All of this must be a load on a soft, tender, lonely girl like herself. I stayed silent until she came back to her normal self while the singer was still singing, "Come, come, after a year, not before a year." Finally, she became present again and said, while passing her fingers through her hair, "After that, the third phone call came." Wait, the third? No, the fourth. And he was saying the same thing, 4 with no fifth, and that I would know the fourth in 4 days. His keenness on the numerical sequence style is pretty cool. I like those organized serial killers, I quipped. But who is the fourth? Is it Alfred? I hope it's not Richard Mackenzie. It really was Alfred, she said. He died by drowning in the swimming pool at his home. There was a long wooden stick next to the pool, which seems to be the thing that forced him to stay underwater. How terrible, I said. Why doesn't he just shoot them and get it over with? And did the police find the source of the phone call? Of course not, she murmured. Only the very stupid don't use a public phone to call and threaten their victims. You know that. Anyway, Scotland Yard men took more interest when I told them that the 5th victim would be anybody except me, Richard Mackenzie, or Elizabeth. And when I got the 5th call, 3 with no 4th to them, you'll know about the 5th in 3 days. At that point, Scotland Yard got a move on. They know how to turn your life into hell. Interrogation, and a cop outside your bedroom and at the entrance of your home, and the strict surveillance of all mentioned, Elizabeth and Mackenzie. No, wait, Mackenzie wasn't there, as he was in Japan on a business trip. Anyway, the Japanese found him hanged in his bedroom. And no, he didn't commit suicide, because there was evidence, clear even to a blind man, of his fighting back. Our serial killer is very unusual. A serial killer who follows his victims, even overseas, and gets them according to his own premeditated time frame. And after that, I prompted, surely Elizabeth died. No, Maggie answered. She didn't die because the cops moved her to Liverpool under strong guard. Also, that man didn't call me again. The experts at Scotland Yard tell me this kind of serial killer does his deed by rituals, almost like religious rituals. There must necessarily be a phone call to me, otherwise the crime won't happen. That's what Professor Kingsfield told me, and he's an expert in these dirty matters. So Scotland Yard suggested for me to go far away, where that bastard can't find me. They also advised me not to pick up the phone until I traveled. And that's why you thought of Egypt and of old Rifat? She reached for my hand, a stem of sweet basil on top of an old rock. You're the only one I trust in this world, Rifat. Don't you get it? You are a part of my soul. I have become paranoid. I can't trust anybody. Graham, Mrs. Olcott. Someone is going to kill me. One of the servants, Alestra, William, Andrew. What do I really know about any of them? There's only one who ever really loved me. I knew he would accept death for me not to die. And accept it even if it meant you not catching a cold. I said it sincerely. I said it as an exhalation which leaves my soul for the stars. She was grateful, saying, I know that, and you were the first one I thought of when they suggested my traveling. I didn't have any way to contact you except by letter, but I knew you would respond quickly, before he calls. Trying to control my shaking hands, I asked her, You think you're the 6th? The same question arose at Scotland Yard, but they presume I would be the 7th, since I'm the only one receiving the phone calls. So the chain has to end with me. Elizabeth is definitely the 6th victim. The singer's voice still rose, his head moving left and right. How do I describe you, darling? Oh, how? What was I like before I loved you, my love? Maggie looked at me and asked passingly, What is he saying now? He's saying he doesn't know how to describe to his lover his status before meeting her. I could have listened to 10 Beatles albums in this time, she quipped. This is the East, I said. Don't try to understand it. You won't like Kulthum until you become a flesh and blood Arab. But let's go back to the serial killer. Surely he'll kill Elizabeth by shooting her or pushing her from a great height. Scotland Yard said the same thing, that this killer doesn't repeat his method. He had used suffocation, burning, cutting the throat, hanging, drowning, and that means he's only left with a method such as shooting or pushing from a height. Of course, poisoning is also a possibility, but his sadistic attitude does not suggest such a delicate method. Here I exploded in laughter, and with spite she asked me, "What's so funny about all this?" I laugh about our situation. I really am jinxed. After all these years we meet in a beautiful place, listening to songs by Kulthum, and what do we talk about? About slaughtering and burning and strangling? It's impossible for Rifat Ismail to live a normal, calm life. This has become a universal law. "That's true," she murmured. "I've become your new story." And her eyes wandered as she regarded the singer and whispered, "I wonder how all this ends, and if my life will go back to normal, to how it was before." Out of respect to her musings, I didn't answer. The singer still carried on, having reached the peak of his engrossment in the song, the peak of death. How many nights like tonight are in a lifetime? 4. He's here. Her legend is that she trusts me. Rifat Ismail's song. I'm not as strong as the Greek heroes. I don't fly, and I won't go into a fight with another man no matter how weak he is. Otherwise my face would be broken. And you still love me? I'm not a runner or a boxer. I'm not a musician pouring the melodies of my love into rhymes that people hear and ask, "Who's the lucky one?" You won't see my photo praised in all of the newspapers and say to your girlfriends, "That's my man," and yet you love me? Even in the medical world, I'm not Max Lippmann, nor am I William Osler. The things I'm unable to do could fill 10 huge volumes. I can't save you from drowning because I don't know how to swim. But I will throw myself into the water to drown before you. I won't fight a lion, but I will die by its fangs before it touches you. And yet you still love me? You're weird, and your taste is even stranger. I'll never get you, but I'm happy and proud. And that's all I can say now. Days passed like a dream. I was happy as a snake which just finished eating a desert mouse, or a child in a candy store. In the morning we see something new. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's new. I am rediscovering the night magic, the pyramids, the Egyptian Museum, Alexandria, and people. It must have been that a full week had passed, and that night I took her to the hotel and, while fidgeting with her key, she said, "Good night, Rifat. Don't be late tomorrow," just as she says every night. And every night I promise her and go back home happy. Other drivers swear at me, and I'm happy. The traffic cop takes down my license plate number, and I'm happy. My legs hurt, and I'm happy. I can understand Gene Kelly's feeling while he sang in the rain. When the cop looked at me, he couldn't find a reason to give me a ticket except that I was dancing and singing in the rain. When I got home, I made myself a cup of tea and sat writing in detail what happened to me that day. I didn't want to forget a single thing. And here the phone rang. For days the phone had ceased being one of the ways in which disasters haunted me at home. Maggie uses it a lot, to talk before sleeping, to tell me that she's happy and grateful to me, and to bid me a good night's sleep, and to drink Linden tea to calm my always shattered nerves. I lifted the phone, waiting to hear the birds chirping. The bird was here, but wasn't chirping. It was howling in madness. "Rifat, he called me." "Good evening, Maggie. I told you that the travel agent is going to—" She interrupted. "I'm talking about him. Him." "What? You mean that calm speaker?" "Yes," she exclaimed. "He told me, 2 with no third to them. You'll know about the 6th in 2 days." I sensed danger, and my heart shook, and as I don't have much hair on my head, my mustache hair stood up instead. How? Is he— Maggie, are you sure of what you're saying?" "As sure as I am that I am me, Rifat. He's very near." I sat tiredly on a chair. This was beyond my ability to explain. Does anyone know that you're staying at that hotel?" "Nobody but you and me," she cried. "Plus, the call didn't come from Scotland. It was from Cairo. I made sure myself." "So he followed you?" I gathered my strength and said in a reasonable voice, "Let's discuss this in the morning. Nothing will happen before 2 days. Now try to get some sleep." She cursed in English, a curse whose meaning I didn't exactly understand, and shouted, "For the love of God, you think I'll be able to sleep after this?" "A Valium pill will do the trick. And if you can't find it, there's always poison, but I'm against that, for reasons I don't have time to explain." "Damn you, Rifat!" she hissed. Nervously, I put down the phone. It seemed like my joke was uncalled for. It's not a nice thing to know that a serial killer is following you and knows your phone number. I should have appreciated that. Anyway, I stood up and put a nitroglycerin under my tongue. It seemed that the blood supply to my heart was not sufficient for news like this. He's here. God only knows how and when he came to Egypt, but a grave danger threatened Maggie's life in the next 2 days. A 50% chance. It was still possible that this talk was about Elizabeth, and within myself I wished for that to be true. Next morning I met her, and she was, as expected, in the worst state. "Rifat, he's following me. He knows I came here. He knows which hotel I'm staying in. He knows my room number." We sat in the telephone central, awaiting a phone call to England. "They have to know that he has called," I told her, "and double the guards on poor Elizabeth. Who knows?" I wanted to comfort her about Elizabeth, so with my usual dumbness I said, "Since he's calling from Egypt, it's certain that you're next, not Elizabeth. You can be at ease now." "Right," she said sarcastically. "Very comforting. Thanks a lot." And here, after a century as usual, our turn at the phone came. She rushed to the booth, opened for me to enter with her, and grabbed the phone with a shaky hand. She began speaking her profound English, such to the extent that I missed about a quarter of what she was saying. When Brits speak to foreigners, they make a point of emphasizing the syllables and letters, but when they talk amongst themselves, they eat half of the letters as if it's something edible. I understood that she was calling Detective Gearhart in the administration, telling him that she had received the 6th call. She went silent. She frowned, and I regarded her with interest. To this day I don't know if she is beautiful or not. The important thing is that I adore her every feature, and every fine line at the sides of her mouth. But she continued, keen on the conversation. I heard her giving him my phone number and then saying to the speaker, over and over, "Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That's it?" She then said goodbye to the speaker, hung up, and avoided my gaze. "Let's go." We left the booth and emerged into the fresh, cold air outside. I sneezed a couple of times and then asked her, after blowing my nose carefully, "Anything new?" Walking quickly, her hands in her coat pockets, she said, "Very important news. One of my friends, Andrew specifically, left the UK a few days ago. It's a strange coincidence that he has suddenly decided to enjoy Egypt's sun in the winter." Stupidly, with my touristic sense awakening, I told her, "Well, why not? Egypt's sunny weather in this season is—" Looking at me quickly, upset, she emphasized her words as she said, "Rifat, you really don't find this suspicious? There's someone who knows me, and he's here in Egypt now. Without hesitation, we can say it's Andrew McPherson himself." "That means he's the serial killer?" I asked. "I don't know," she replied, "but I know one fact. There's no one in Egypt who knows everything about me except for you and this McPherson." "And does he know you're in Egypt?" "No one knows," she answered. "I told my friends and the servants that I'm going to Mauritius to ski. The season hasn't started yet, but they didn't notice that." "Well, anyway, it's easy to learn the truth," I said mildly. "The inspector told me to be careful, or otherwise go back to the UK immediately. But in spite of that, I feel safer here." She sat in the car next to me. I started the engine, searching my brain for a new question. What did I want to say? Ah, yes. "Is this Andrew crazy, or does he have reasons compelling him to kill your gang one by one?" While rolling up her window, she said, "He's a very steady man, very friendly, but I don't trust anyone anymore. All serial killers are steady and friendly, And whenever the cops arrest one of them, people act surprised. We never would have guessed he was a murderer. He's so steady, stable, and friendly, and nice to his parents." Here I remembered Adil's insightful quote as he prepared to arrest the Alexandrian serial killer in the cannibal story. He told me, "A serial killer is not necessarily someone with disheveled hair, running wildly in the streets, brandishing a knife and drooling." I've never forgotten that sentence. But is this the case really that clear? End of part 2.